Back at Investor Townhouse headquarters in San Diego. On the program today, we have Ric Schumacher, President and CEO of BioSciences. Ric, thanks so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me on, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Well, Ric, you had a very strong finish till 2016. You're heading into 2017 very strong here. Tell us a little bit about that and what you expect to see here coming up.
We did. We had a very good year and a very strong finish in the fourth quarter. Our products and services revenue was up 55% over the previous year. We're very proud of that. And within that 55%, our consumables was up over 70%. I think what's important is to segregate between the products and services and the grant revenue. We think it's a great when the products actually go up. Grants did go down a little bit, but the grant money will catch up on eventually. But it's important to know that we're selling more instruments, we're selling more consumables. And for the year, our products and services increased 27% last year over fiscal year 2015, and our consumables increased 37%. And total revenue counting grants still increased, even though grants went down, still increased over 10%. So a very strong finish to the year. We went into this year talking about how we believe that the revenue would continue to increase during this year, and we still believe that this is going to be a good year for revenue. And of course, and we may touch on this later, this is all being done with the same small sales team that we've had for the last number of years.
We'll definitely touch on that, but let's go into another achievement because you had a lot, in the past year here. You achieved CE marking on the 2320 Barocycler Extreme. Tell us a bit about that too.
Well, as you know, we're a life science tools company. We make instruments that have associated consumables. These instruments have a pressure chamber in them, a small pressure chamber, where we can actually pressurize samples and manipulate samples, break open cells, kill viruses, all inside the lab. So it makes it easier, better, higher quality for the researcher to look for that new drug, that new cure, that new understanding what's causing a disease. These are instruments of which we have about 300 now throughout the world. And as you know, in the past 2 years, we've got the endorsement and the support of a number of key opinion leaders throughout the world, in Europe, in Asia, and in the U.S. and Canada. These instruments, the main instrument we've been selling, the 2320, we really haven't changed this instrument for about the 7 years we've been selling it until last year. Middle of last year, we released the first new change in that instrument, and that change, we called it now the 2320 Extreme. Has a number of things, we call them bells and whistles, that are far better than what we had before. It still is on the principle of putting cells under high pressure to open them up, to free the proteins and lipids and DNA that are in the cell. But more importantly, we have the ability now to give the scientists more ability to open them up, higher pressures, longer times under pressure, the ability to go to different pressures without having to go all the way back down to ambient, which is 14.5, which we're under most of the time, 14.5 pounds per square inch. So this machine can go all the way up to 45,000 PSI. That's quite a lot. That's like more than 2.5 times the pressure at the bottom of the deepest part of the ocean at the Marianas Trench. And we get that in under a second. So we're able to very safely put samples in test tubes, put the test tubes inside the chamber, which is filled with water, and then take it to certain pressures that we know will kill a virus or open up a cell and allow all of the good materials inside and the bad materials to come out to be studied. And this new instrument, the 2320 Extreme, can go to 10,000 pounds more. It can go back to 14.5, and you can imagine doing a staircase, going up 1,000 PSI, then 2,000, then 3,000, and 4,000. The older machine would go to 2,000, then have to go back to 14.5, then go to 3,000, go back to 14.5. The new machine now has many more algorithms, many more possibilities. So it is enhancing the ability of the researcher now to break open and manipulate the proteins, the lipids, the DNA inside the cell to learn more about a disease or a disorder.
Well, Ric, thanks for that description. And it's great to hear you're always constantly improving the technology and kind of, obviously trying to always improve on what you've already done. Let's get back to that question we talked about before. You're ramping up the sales team. Tell us more about that.
Well, as we've talked about on your show before, we've had 9 people in our company for about 5 to 6 years, and one person was doing half-time sales and half-time marketing. And we've now promoted her to director of sales and marketing, and we're hiring a sales team. So we've gone from basically no sales to 500,000 to a million to $1.3 million to $1.7 million. And last year, 2016, we did a few $1,000s under $2 million in sales. And this is with the same team of 9 people, with one person working half-time in sales and one retired person that used to work for us helping us out part-time in sales. We've made a commitment to our investors, made a commitment to all of our listeners that this company is going to build a sales team in 2017, and we've started. Our goal is to hire up to 4 salespeople to be out in the field selling our new instrument, and some we have several older instruments that we also sell, and we've started that. So already we've hired 2 full-time salespeople, one to cover the western part of the U.S., one to cover the Midwest. I've interviewed a person for the New England territory after my team has interviewed them and cut it down to whom they think is the best. And we also have a person coming in tomorrow for the Mid-Atlantic region, from everywhere from Maryland, New Jersey, all the way down to Florida and over to Ohio and Louisiana. So we have 2 other people we're looking at, and fingers crossed they're the right people. They like us and we like them, because we want to get to 4 people. We want to get to it soon. We think that we have the instrument. We have the key opinion leader support. We have over 100 papers that have been published from independents that are talking about the advantages of breaking open cells using pulses of pressure, not using mechanical means to hack away at a cell, but we actually squeeze the cell like you're squeezing a sponge. And we think that now, at the point with the brand new instrument that's out, and with the key opinion leaders, our balance sheet's been cleaned up. It's time to put together a real strong sales force. We're halfway there, and maybe in the coming days and weeks we'll be all the way there.
Ric, I'm glad you touched on that, because you've definitely cleaned your balance sheet up and you've been working hard. I think people who've tuned in before and have been watching, you've made a lot of progress just in the last year and a half or so. And now's the time where people are starting to get excited about the sales, and you're ramping that up. You're being able to not be on the road as much. So these are all big pluses, I think, for the company going forward. So congratulations on that.
Well, thanks. And you talk about not being on the road. I do want to mention that perhaps one of the most significant events has happened just recently in the last several weeks, and that event is bringing on a full-time chief financial officer in Joe Damasio. Joe worked for us for a number of years, for 7 years, as controller, and then as head of accounting, and then as our vice president of finance. Joe left us about 5 years ago, and he went off and learned a lot, and worked for 3 different companies, and came back and said, hey, I'd like to come back, and we wanted him back. And so, as you know, I've been filling the role of interim chief financial officer for about 2 years. And it takes, between being on the road as trying to make sure the company is completely funded and we can do what we need to do, as well as being back in the office as CEO and CFO, it's taken its toll. And having Joe back now, I think he's going into his 4th week, is terrific. And it's going to make a big difference to me personally. It's going to give me more time to focus on the business, not just the investor relations, not just the financial end, but on the actual business. As you know, I'm a scientist. I've started 3 prior companies. They've all been in the biotechnology area. They've all been very successful. And what frustrates me a lot is not having the time over the last couple of years to spend the appropriate amount of time on the operations, on building the company, on helping to build the sales force, on working on the technical end with my superb technical people. That's all changing. So in addition to everything else we've talked about, with Joe coming on board as our CFO, it's going to free me up for the rest of the year now to work on some really amazing things that I really enjoy, and things I think I can make a difference in.
Well, that's great to hear. Great to have Joe coming back on for you. Obviously, alleviate some of those other responsibilities there. So now let's talk about, you've talked about uplisting back to the Nasdaq in 2017 as a goal of yours. Tell us where you stand on that.
You're right. We go into every year, and those who've been watching your show understand that at the end of every year, we usually lay out the major goals for the following year. We laid out, I believe, 5 or 6 goals for 2016. And we hit all but one. The one goal is we were going to try to get uplisted to Nasdaq before the end of the year. We didn't make that, but we made some very good progress. But all the other goals, signing on with a very large, one of the largest companies in the world, selling a machine that we sit in front of, a mass spectrometer. A machine can run $500,000. That was a goal to get that done last year, and we did, to clean up our balance sheet, and we did, to have the new instrument, and we did. Those goals were all reached. This year, we went into the year with two key goals. The first goal was to get the company back up to the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, and we think that's very important. Second goal is in the operations to build a sales team. We've talked about building the sales team. Now about Nasdaq. When you're on the over-the-counter stock market, there are, as I understand, about 1,000 companies that are in either the OTCQB or QX, and these are the top two tiers of the three tiers. And the third tier are the pink sheet companies. It's hard to distinguish for an investor between a pink sheet, which is a company that's not filing all the time, and a lot of people think it's a risky investment, versus an OTCQB or QX. We are an OTCQB. We run this company like it's a Nasdaq company. We have a completely independent audit committee. We do all of the things that we expect that we're going to be asked to do as a Nasdaq company if and when we get back on the Nasdaq. But we're doing it now as an OTC company. But unfortunately, most stockbrokers cannot recommend stocks that are all over the counter, and certainly stocks that are at prices that are down under $1. And most institutions will not invest. So getting back on the Nasdaq will enable this company to become a company that stockbrokers can recommend, that institutions might want to invest in. When I had a previous company, excuse me, on the Nasdaq, we were in the Russell 3000, and it made a big difference to the company and the liquidity of the company. So we're looking forward to this. We are moving along. We've had several announcements through press releases and through conference calls. We believe that we have the ability, and that everything's in shape, that we could become a Nasdaq company again, before the end of the second quarter. And of course, we're already well into the second quarter. So we think we're that close, and we're very excited about it for all that the Nasdaq brings to us, and we think will bring to us. Very excited that we're moving along, and that in a matter of a few weeks or a month, we could be a month or month and a half, we could be back on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange.
Well, Ric, I'm thank you for your time, and I think that's a very valid point that you make there, is that getting back to the Nasdaq opens up a whole nother realm of institutional investors trading on fundamentals, and we hope to see you there soon here. But thanks so much for taking the time, Ric. We'll have you on again soon.
I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Dan.
We'll catch more interviews on investortownhall.com and tune in under the webcast section, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks so much. Stay tuned for the next interviews here on investortownhall.com. Also, make sure to join a stock board to start the discussion and get your voice heard.